All right, welcome to the All Elite Wrestling / All Out Recap with the two biggest wrestling fans at Branded Sports. If you can read the site, thebrandedsports.com, #GetBranded. A lot of blogs on there. Walsh actually wrote a AEW preview. Because that's the kind of site we are. We preview and predict scripted things around here.
Yep.
That's great.
So we do. Why not?
Yeah, why not? That's the beauty of Branded Sports. We have that creative freedom, much like the wrestlers in AEW do compared to the other company. But I'm Chavy, and again, that's Walsh. And yeah, we're the two biggest wrestling fans in Branded Sports history. And follow them on Twitter, Branded_sports. And then you can see on the bottom there, we got our Twitters. We're drinking tonight. Walsh has got the Bud Light. I have the Coors Banquet. And the words of Brock Lesnar from UFC 100, I'm drinking a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing. That was one of the greatest. I watched that post-fight interview the other day, and it's so funny because at the press conference after that, he has a Bud Light in front of him, and he's apologizing for just shitting all over them. But I got to be honest, I've never been a Bud Light fan. I've always been Busch Light or Coors.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if it's a regional thing. It's an Ohio thing. Busch Light is definitely an Ohio thing, I think. I know the Degenerate Boys, Chip Choderson, loves Busch Light, which I can't tell if that's ironic or not. Like they're making fun of us simpletons. But, what's the drink of choice over in Philly? Is it always, if it's not an IPA or a local brewery, what's like your mainstream choice?
Or are you talking about just Philly in general?
Both of them. Let's hear what you drink, and then let's hear what the Philadelphians drink.
I know it's big around my area. Philly is Twisted Tea, tea light, regular tea, a lot of teas flying off the shelves. You can't even find them around here anymore. That's how popular they are. Personally, though, I'm more of a beer guy. I will Twisted Tea is my summer drink every now and then. But if I had to pick like straight beer that I'm going with, I'd probably say either Bud Light, Labatt Blue. That's probably like my main go-tos.
Which Labatt is like a big hockey beer, I'm thinking, because that's like the only time I see it is when I go to hockey games. So I'm guessing with you being a big, and I don't want to bring them up and but we got to take the Band-Aid off. You're a big Flyers fan,
yeah.
And they just lost Game 7. But would you agree that Labatt's more of like go to a hockey game, drink that kind of beer?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it is also to me, I guess I've just grown accustomed to drinking it so much that I can just drink it any time of the year. Yeah, I just like it. It's good.
It is good. It's a little potent to me. I've had multiple hangovers due to Labatt Blue in hockey games. I wouldn't change it though. I would go back and do it again every time. Now I'm in a different setting this week, or this like recording session.
On location.
So it's weird sitting out here because like I have sunglasses on because I'm like the Mitch Hedberg of Branded Sports, and it's like so weird sitting out here because it's a transition. It's like I'm on acid right now, but let's talk about AEW. I think I don't even know how we both how did we both realize we were wrestling fans. First off, like we'll talk about AEW eventually, but
yeah, we'll get there. I think I had wrote a recap of one of the NXT shows, like when we first joined Branded.
Oh, the In Your House one, yeah.
And then I think you had messaged me. You're like, oh, I didn't know, we had another wrestling fan, and then we just kind of went off of that and just started talking about it, and here we are.
Yeah, and then I think we both live tweeted Slammiversary.
Yeah.
And we thought like, oh, Branded Sports is going to totally get in on this, but like that's almost too niche. Like that's not going to get clicks. I'll be the first one to say Impact doesn't even get clicks for their own site or their show. They get like 140,000 viewers a week. Which I get. I would kill for that kind of viewership, but when you're on a nationally syndicated channel like the Access TV, you should pump those numbers up. They're rookie numbers to me.
And honestly, the only reason I even watched it was because of all the recent releases from WWE, where like you kind of knew there was going to be some big debuts, or at least people that I looked forward to seeing there that might show up. And I honestly was kind of disappointed, but the best part of that was the Good Brothers debuting.
Oh yeah, I was kind of surprised that the Good Brothers. I don't want to say spoiled it, but they announced Impact. Like everyone thought it was going to be Slammiversary, like you said, with all the other debuts. But they just straight up announced they're like, "Hey, we're signing with Impact." It was a cool announcement though. They had their new entrance song, "The Devil on Your Six," badass song, and the way they announced it, I loved it. It was cool. And then they had their Talking Shop of Mania after that, which was pretty funny. But yeah, I I thought Rusev, the way I liked Impact's way that they announced they were going to have surprises. They just had vignettes for every released WWE superstar, and they're like, we could just bring them all in, but obviously not. Some of them didn't come in. Like Rusev didn't come in, and who else? I think everyone else debuted though, besides him.
Yeah.
Zack Ryder.
Zack Ryder, yeah, who ended up, well, technically he's still a free agent from what I saw. He's not actually signed with AEW, according to Tony Khan.
But I think it's a matter of time, though. I think they're just, yeah, because they don't want to. You don't want to be TNA from like 2010 and just bring in a bunch of WWE cast off. And I shouldn't even call them cast off because they're not bad wrestlers. But you just don't. It's not a good look. And I think Tony Khan and AEW get that if you just bring in every release guy and run with it and just sign them to a long-term deal. So I think he's going to he's earned the deal, though. I think, in my opinion, he's put out some of his best work since 2012. It was when he had won the Intercontinental title. It's some of his best work.
He's looking jacked too. I don't know if maybe I just hadn't seen him in WWE for a while, where I like didn't realize how big and swole he actually was. He looks like he's in the best shape of his life.
Oh yeah, he looks phenomenal. And I think part of it is that he did put on weight and put on muscle, and then the other part is the WWE norm is like 6'2" and taller for like the top guys in the division or in wrestling. Mm-hmm. And I think AEW is just going on with that new trend of like, hey, we don't need everyone to be 6'2" and 240 or like pushing 260. We'll take you any shape, size, doesn't matter, and we're going to work with you. So I think that's kind of what it is.
They don't need the meatheads.
No, I mean and that's what I like about AEW is it's just totally different styles of wrestling. It's like it's a good comparison to WCW back in the day where they had like the Lucha Libres open the show, the cruiserweights, and then they would move on to like mid-card stories, and then they would go to the main eventers in like the second or third hour of Nitro. That's why I think makes Dynamite more watchable for me compared to WWE. Is that it's a legitimate variety show to me instead of just you're watching the WWE universe, and all that stuff. That's what drew me to AEW.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just something different. Like WWE has gotten so stale, and like I'll admit I'm still one of the people that like I'll still watch every now and then, but I just want something to change with it, and it doesn't seem like it's happening, but I still tune in for the pay-per-view, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever change as long as Vince is around, and I don't even know if Triple H is going to change. So we've seen how kind of NXT has taken the main roster model now, where it's kind of getting very stale as well. Which, if you told me 4 years ago that that's how NXT would get, I'd be like, you're crazy. Because I used to watch every takeover. That's about the only thing I would watch because I was like,
yeah.
But you knew you were getting guaranteed banger matches, like the Revival Wrestling, Gargano and Ciampa. And then you would get like Shinsuke and Samoa Joe fighting for the belt, or you would get Finn Balor and Samoa Joe fighting for the belt. And still, one of my favorite matches of like the last 5 years is hands down Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura at TakeOver Dallas. One of the great, and they called it on the fly, which was even crazier. They didn't rehearse that match at all, and they just went out there and it was like a 20-minute banger, just strong style meets El Generico. It was awesome.
Yeah, and it kind of stinks. Like, I really wish that NXT wouldn't have gone to like the primetime slot that they're in. Like, it was so much better when it was just on WWE Network, and almost people didn't know about it. And then you would watch takeovers, and they would just be incredible. And you'd have like crazy things that would happen. You'd have incredible matches. Then you'd have like crazy things that would happen, like the debut of the Undisputed Era after Drew McIntyre won his NXT championship. That was an all-time moment, in my opinion, for NXT. Like, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fischer are right there, and then all of a sudden Adam Cole just comes sprinting out. Great debut for them.
Oh, yeah, it definitely was. And I started getting into, like, independent wrestling and, like, some other alternatives, like, a little before that. And it was cool seeing Adam Cole in Ring of Honor become the champion, and then he gets kicked out of the Bullet Club by the Young Bucks and Marty Scurll and Kenny Omega. And then that was like one of my favorite things in Ring of Honor. I went to a show actually the year his last year there, and I was hoping that they were going to put him on the card. It was when they did the War of the Worlds between New Japan and Ring of Honor, and it was right as soon as he was getting kicked out, it was leading up to it, And I was like, man, if I can just see Adam Cole get on the ropes and just do the Adam Cole baby, and I just launch streamers at him, worth it. So when he debuted, and then there was like a sold out arena, and he just does that Adam Cole baby, and the whole arena does it with him. Goosebumps. I loved every second of it. That was awesome.
But yeah, let's get to why we're actually here. We're going to actually talk about AEW now. So All Out last night. What did you think? I know you had a little hard time watching it.
That's what better way to start off talking about All Out than talking about all the problems I had watching it. So I told you right before we started recording, I got home at about 9:15, and right during the Shida versus Thunder Rosa match. And I wanted to watch from the beginning because, like I told you off air, I said I love watching it from the beginning. I don't want to read stuff and catch up. I want to just watch it all the way through uninterrupted, and then I'll read stuff about it afterwards. So Bleacher Report Live, I ordered the pay-per-view through there, and I have the app on my Xbox. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try to watch it from the beginning. Every time I clicked on it, it just put me live. And I would just get into the middle of a match, and I was like, fuck, I don't want to watch this. Like, close my eyes, cover my ears, and I'll try to get it to go back to the beginning. Unfortunately, I could not get that feature. And then I tried air casting it from my Xbox, or from my phone to my Xbox. And that, on the phone, it was like, okay, you can watch from the beginning because you don't want spoilers. Like, that's part of your settings. So I started from the beginning, and then I tried casting it, and it would not stick. Like, my app would shut down every time I tried it. So I had the worst time trying to do it. I spent a good hour between like my phone, my Xbox, our Roku out in our living room, and my MacBook, which I'm recording on right now, just pulling up All Out and just trying to watch from the beginning and then stream it to my TV. I was so pissed off. I just said, fuck it. I'm going to go against everything I planned. I'm going to read what happened, and I'm just going to turn it on live and watch it, and then I'll go back tomorrow and watch the show. So I hopped in right at the end of Shida and Rosa, and then I watched Omega and Hangman versus FTR, and then I skipped the Mimosa Mayhem, and then I watched Main Event, and I fell asleep. So I had a horrible time watching it. It didn't hinder the show for me, though, because I love all Elite Wrestling. But let's hear about how you enjoyed the show. You said you had a little bit of delay?
Yeah, so I was on a little bit of delay. And at the same time, the Flyers were playing in Game 7, so I wasn't tuning in right away. I was watching the Flyers. They were my first priority. And when I did, I would flip over, during commercials and during intermissions and stuff, but my full attention wasn't there. Then after the Flyers ended, I was all in, locked in. But I found out via scrolling through Twitter after the Flyers game that I was about a solid 5 minutes behind the live action. So, I was finding out results. I found out who won the Casino Battle Royal before I'm pretty sure he was even in the match. Then I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize it was that far behind. So then I just put my phone down for the rest of the night and just enjoyed the show.
Which, it's kind of hard to do. I know I said before when I would watch WWE, I would just read the dirt sheets. I would read my phone and get spoiled. But this is one of the All Elite Wrestling is where I trust them enough that I don't need to do that. If I see even an ounce of a rumor or spoiler, I avoid it because I'm I want to be legitimately surprised because I feel like they do offer that a lot, and it's so refreshing. Like you said, they're not stale. They're a new company, and I feel like they really listen to the fans, which I think this show, we're going to really see how true they are to that based on all the shit show it was.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people say it was one of the worst shows they've put on, but at the same time, the worst show they put on is also very good. I feel like all the other 4 pay-per-views they have a year knock it out of the park. So it's they're not going to hit 1,000, but even when they don't hit 1,000, they still do pretty good. So it's is it really that bad? They set the bar so high that even a good show could be considered bad.
Yeah, and there was obviously some mishaps last night, but one, they're putting us on an entertaining show regardless. They're doing it now with a little bit of fans in attendance, which is even better to see. They're outside, so you have to take into account the weather, which that clearly was a little bit of a problem. Apparently, the humidity was very high. We weren't there, but from what I'm reading, very high humidity, which that's never fun to deal with. You're sweating, which means stuff's going to be a lot more slippery than it is. But let's start with So, did you go back and watch the pre-show at all, or did you just watch?
No,
main
I
card?
mean, I read the results, and I'll be honest, I like Janela, and I like the Serpentico character,
Mhm.
but I knew it was like, again, it goes back to like, if there's no story behind it, and it's on a pay-per-view, it's like it's hard for me to get invested with all the other matches that have such like a building feud, or it's like a blow-off match, like there's so much story behind it. So I was like, I wasn't gonna go back and watch it because it's like if I miss it, I miss it. But if it's a banger, I'll go back and watch it. And but I wish I would have watched Private Party versus the Dark Order with Reynolds and John Silver, because I feel like that was probably a good match. Like Private Party is going to be like the tag team of the future in AEW. So that's probably one I should go back and watch. So I mean, I'll probably watch it after this.
Yeah, I also missed the first two matches. Like I said, the Flyers were on, so I wasn't really focused on it. And again, I'm with you where if there's no really build to the match, I'm not as interested as I should be. But I agree, Private Party always usually puts on a pretty good match regardless. So I may also do the same thing, go back and watch that a little bit later on.
Yeah, I mean, when it's called the buy-in, it's supposed to be the pre-show to get people like from on YouTube or Bleacher Report Live that are fringe on buying it. Like they're just right there. They just need that little push over the edge so they'll buy it. I knew I was going to buy it. I knew I was going to watch it. So it's like, and again, I had plans already. So I was like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to cut my plan short to hurry up and get home and watch the buy-in.
Right.
But if they would have kept Big Swole versus Britt Baker, which I guess is a good way to make our way into the main card, that was on the buy-in originally. And now I would have been bummed to miss that because, like I said before, it had a huge story behind it. And it was interesting to see Tony Khan say, okay, we heard you guys. We're going to bump this to the main pay-per-view. But I mean, realistically, he didn't have to do that. His reasoning for why they were going to do that was justified. It was a cinematic match. When you play that with fans in the arena, it kind of can suck the life out of the arena. So I get his reasoning, but again, I mean, it's not because the match was bad or anything. I liked the match. I thought it was hilarious.
So I'm back and forth on it. In a way, I'm kind of glad they didn't put on the buy-in show because I don't think that would have sold many people on wanting to watch the pay-per-view. I like the concept of the cinematic matches, and I think there were some bright spots to it, but it also seemed like maybe it was because it was bumped to the main card. It seemed a little rushed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And again, I wasn't fully paying attention to it, so that could be also on me, where I was watching the Flyers for most of it, so I was kind of flipping back and forth while that was going on. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone, if you came in expecting that was going to be anything other than kind of like a comedy match, like when you go cinematic, you can't have like super kick, Canadian Destroyer. Like you can't have those moves that are going to get the crowd going because they have nothing to go off of. They're just filming a match. It's more of a fight than anything than it is an actual wrestling match. So yeah, if you come in like with that expectation of a cinematic match, you won't be disappointed unless it's just dog shit, which this wasn't. I mean, the concept was hilarious. The fact that they're wrestling in her dentist office and like they kind of, they made it a little bit campy, which I feel like is good. Like that's what they have to lean into when you're dealt a bad hand in COVID-19 is that you have to call an audible. And you know what? I'm actually glad this was a cinematic match because I feel like if this was just a typical blow-off match in a ring, I don't know if it would have been as good. So I think because I've read people think this about Britt Baker and Big Swole. They're still kind of inexperienced and they need to get a little bit more work in the ring. So what's the best way to keep you work with that and you do a cinematic match to where you can we're going to give them the opportunity, but we're also not going to just go out here and have them expose their weaknesses. And again, it goes back to them being a variety show. If they just went out there and had a typical one-on-one match, it wouldn't have stuck out much differently from the rest of the card. With them doing this, I enjoy it. I think that's what they need to do. And I liked it. I mean, I'm not going to rate it. I'm not Meltzer. I don't give ratings. I just say if I enjoyed it or not. I enjoyed the match.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't hate it, but it wasn't like, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Like, it was okay. It was a match, I wouldn't go back and watch it again.
Right, which I think I think with most cinematic matches, let's see, the only ones I could think of this year that I would honestly go back and rewatch are the Boneyard match with Taker and AJ Styles from WrestleMania and the Stadium Stampede with the Elite versus Inner Circle, because those were just hilarious.
Yeah.
Stadium Stampede was hilarious. The Boneyard match was pretty cool, but those were done like where they put in a bunch of time and effort into it to make it like an epic, because they were the main events of both of the shows they were on. Whereas this was just your run of the mill, like, we're not trying to set the world on fire. We're just doing a comedy match. So again, there's not a lot of replay value in cinematic matches. It is what it is. I mean, COVID dealt everyone a bad hand, and it just happens. So, but yeah, that was Big Swole beat Britt Baker 10 minutes in. That went about the perfect amount of time, in my opinion. And the next match, we had the Young Bucks over Jurassic Express in 14 and a half minutes. And I don't know about you, but I am excited because the way the Bucks have been working lately and the way they kicked out Hangman Page of the Elite, they're working as heels. And I love it. If you go back and watch the early indie work of the Young Bucks, they play good pieces of shit. They are just cocky pricks. And I love it. I'm loving they're going back to that.
They do it very well. And not to get, I mean, it's not getting off topic, it's getting off subject a little bit. We may be seeing the return of another certain character within that Elite too. So we'll probably talk on that a little bit later on. But yeah, the Young Bucks have been they're always entertaining in my opinion.
Yeah.
I've been watching them since, their early days, and now their own company here. They put on a great show. Very impressive, in my opinion, has been the Jurassic Express. Luchasaurus, for being as big as he is very athletic. I don't think they get enough credit as a team as well. Since they've joined AEW, they've been probably one of the more entertaining teams, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure they have. And I think it goes back. I think one of the big stories, I think, with AEW, and it goes back to what I said about Britt Baker and Big Swole. It's about them getting experience on a national scale. Jungle Boy was a SoCal wrestler before he made it to AEW. He was working PWG. He was working just the indies down there, and a little bit around the country. And then Luchasaurus, he was on Lucha Underground, and he wasn't developmental for WWE. So I think it just goes back to them getting just experience. And I think that's going to pay dividends for them to invest long-term into those people. And like you said, they're great now. Imagine where Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy will be in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're going to be probably one of the top teams in the very near future. And again, this just goes back to the stacked tag team division that AEW has. I mean, it's blows the WWE out of the water, in my opinion.
And that's
building these young teams up so well, and they have a lot of them at this point.
Oh yeah, it's about building the talent they have there between Private Party, Jurassic Express. I mean, I know they've been around the block a couple times, but I'd even throw Santana and Ortiz in there because they were in Impact Wrestling. They never were in WWE. And, I think they're just now getting recognized by again, a nationally broadcasted audience. Whereas before it was like you'd have to go out of your way to watch Impact to hear about Santana and Ortiz. But and they're even bringing in guys that were in WWE, and this is why I don't have a problem with it, because they were underutilized there. You have FTR, who we're going to talk about later, put on banger after banger in NXT, and now they come here and get treated like an actual threat because, like you said, tag team wrestling is not treated as a lost art or just a throwaway here as it is in WWE. Like the tag team could main event just as much as the AEW world title, and that's what makes this company great to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And bringing up Santana and Ortiz is another good segue into the next match, which was the Casino Battle Royal, in which Lance Archer won that one. What did you think of this overall Battle Royal? I've always been a fan since they started doing them. They seem to be very entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think you'll ever hear me say a bad word about AEW because, like I said, I trust them to lead me on a journey of being entertained. Is there going to be a few misses, obviously? And I feel like a lot of people, when this Battle Royal started at the last, it was All In, or not All In. It was it Double or Nothing? I think they started this, or it may have been All Out the year before. But a lot of people weren't a fan of people drawing the card, and then like they would just bring out the suit of that people, those people that out at once. I like that they did spread it out between like everyone got their kind of like a little entrance. Well, again, I love the concept where it's different from a typical battle royal / Royal Rumble. Coors Light's making me burp a lot, but yeah, I loved it. I loved who started out the match. It was I'm scrolling down here. It looks like we had the Blade, Ray Phoenix, Jake Hager, Christopher Daniels, and Trent come out first.
Mm-hmm.
That's a banger right there, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they were the clubs. I guess that was cool. I'm going to start rambling at this point. I'm going to tag you in. I'm giving you the hot tag. What did you think about the Battle Royal?
I liked it. And like I said, I'm with you where I think it's very cool and it's a new concept almost from when they did start this. And I like that. I feel like with WWE, and I hate that we keep going back to this, but I mean, that's what you have to compare it to. That's supposed to be the top-notch thing, and they're not. But with WWE, they always announce who's going to be in the Battle Royals. There's not much of a surprise factor anymore. With AEW, you get a surprise entrant. I think every one so far we've had some sort of surprise entrant. And it may not be the biggest name, but I mean, Matt Sydal, he was the Joker card. He was the one. That's kind of where things started to get a little rocky on the show. He runs in and tries to give a shooting star press and slips on the top rope. Avoided serious injury.
Yeah, don't know how he did that. That
was scary.
Yeah, he managed to land on directly on his shoulder, which again can't feel good, but it is way better than landing on your head.
Absolutely. So we had that one. The other guy that was one of the surprise ones was what's his name? Can't think of his name right now.
Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn was a surprise.
Billy Gunn was a surprise.
So there was 5 total because I think they announced 16 people from what I counted on the screen before the match started. So you had, I believe, Billy Gunn. You had Will Hobbs.
Will Hobbs. That's what I was thinking of. Yes.
I mean, that was one of their guys that they've been working on Dark a lot lately, which is just to get some of the younger guys reps and indie talent some work. And the reviews are in, and he seems like he's getting raving reviews from a lot of fans. Again, it's a long-term investment, which is what I like about AEW. They are investing. They're not just going out and signing like veteran. Well, I mean they are, but they're also investing just as much in the younger talent. So they're building this company long-term. So that's another name to look out for from this. Let's see who else was a surprise entrance. I believe Sonny. I don't know if Sonny Kiss was on the vignette for before it started.
I don't.
So he might have been a surprise. Speaking of Billy Gunn, Brian Cage just picks up 6'5" Billy Gunn and just gorilla presses him out of the ring. Impressive.
Yeah. Cage is a scary dude. I don't care who you are. He's a monster. But yeah, that was very impressive. Billy Gunn's no slouch. He's older, but he's still a big dude himself. He's, hitting the weights.
Oh yeah. It's funny about Brian Cage. I say he's one scary dude. I used to watch him in Lucha Underground. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, his arms are as big as my chest. Unreal. And people have asked him, obviously it's not natural. He'll be the first to admit he does not have a natural body there. It's steroids.
Right.
When people asked him why he didn't go to WWE, he's like, I would piss right through the cup.
Makes sense.
That's a very fair assessment of how
Gotta respect the honesty.
Yeah. And I'll be honest about the Battle Royal. I forgot that they weren't going to pin anyone. I forgot it was totally over the top rope. I feel like in the last one they did pin when they did the Battle Royal.
Yeah, well, I think so. What do we have? We've had at least, I would say, 2 or 3 Battle Royals, and there was a ladder match.
Yep, ladder match was at Double or Nothing in May.
But yeah, I also was at the same thing. I did not fully realize it was just all over the top rope, so I was a little thrown off myself. That's my bad for not reading the rules.
Yeah, and you know what? I did like that they put in tag teams in this. Like, it seemed like it was, again, which goes to the depth of the tag team division. But it was cool to see them do that because like you had a reason for these people to work together. Like in the Royal Rumbles, I mean, fuck it. We're going to talk about the WWE comparisons, like you said, because that's the biggest company. But you just kind of see these random working together, and then it's just like, that's kind of weird, but I get it. But this one was like, this isn't weird at all. Like Ray Phoenix and Pentagon are teammates. They're brothers. Of course, they're going to look after each other for when they are in a battle royal, and then if it comes down to it, they'll wrestle each other. But that was another cool little detail I liked about this.
Yeah, I agree. And then it was, like we said, Lance Archer picking up the win. So he debuted a couple months back, and he's with Jake the Snake right now as his manager. Yeah. So we'll see how long it takes before he gets his title shot. I think it'll be pretty soon. I don't think they saved that for like a major pay-per-view, which we did get the announcement. The next one, Full Gear, will be in November. So I could definitely see that being one of the headline matches on one of the upcoming episodes of Dynamite over these next couple of weeks.
Which is the best way to do it because, like you said, that'll probably be late November too. That they, well, I didn't see. Let me look it up real quick.
November 7th.
Okay, so it'll be early.
So they got early November, which I mean, I guess looking at the timeline, I guess they could maybe save it for that and build it up. But I feel like you don't have. That's not something you have to build up because he won the Battle Royal. We all know he's going to get a championship opportunity. Like, all right, so let him pick his moment. Do a quick, 1-2 week build for that. See what happens.
Yeah, I think if you go with Full Gear for this match, Archer has to take the belt off of Moxley because I feel like you can't build to that, and you can't. With Archer already losing his pay-per-view match to Cody Rhodes at Double or Nothing for the TNT title. You can't build to that just to have Moxley retain because Moxley is someone that doesn't need a lengthy title reign. I'm glad he's getting it. Don't get me wrong, but Archer would need that win more than Mox would because Mox can just lose the belt and fight Darby Allin. He can go run it back. Yeah, he can. Whereas Lance Archer, if you want to keep building him as a threat, you'd have to put the belt on him if you're going to do it at that. But if you do kind of what they did with Cage, where it's like the manager throws in the towel because he's looking out for his investment, like, if Moxley gets him in an armbar, I'm okay with that. Like you said, they're probably going to build it to a Dynamite. I would say probably early October, we'll probably see the match. And that's the best way to do it because Moxley is a ratings draw. We saw that when he headlined Fyter Fest. Or no, it was 2 weeks after Fyter Fest when he wrestled Brian Cage. Mm-hmm. And ratings got a huge bump because people are going to tune into Moxley.
Yeah.
So put that on TV and let them just have a great match there. And if you have Archer surprise win, awesome. If you have Moxley retain, awesome. Again, I just don't want to see it on pay-per-view if they're not going to have Archer win. But I feel like one more thing I want to talk about before we move on from the Battle Royal. Darby Allin's got a death wish.
Yes, that dude is a freaking maniac. He is absolutely insane. I love it.
Yeah, I actually saw him wrestle in Michigan at an Evolve show. And this is before I knew like a lot of the names. Like I think everyone on that card is in a major promotion now. It was actually the last battle, they called it, between Keith Lee and Matt Riddle. Because Keith Lee was getting signed to WWE and Riddle went a short time later. Darby Allin wrestled Shane Strickland on the card. Or he's Isaiah Swerve Scott now in the WWE. And he even took some insane bumps there. I mean, he took a curb stomp from Shane Strickland, and it made a huge stud. Like I get they ham it up a little. I don't think he was hamming it up too much. The dude took an insane bump, like at a indie show. Yeah,
and he doesn't seem like the type of guy that tries to fake it. I guess is the best way to do it. Like half the time he does the stuff, I'm like, oh my god, is he alive? Like that dude is a maniac. He's absolutely insane.
Yeah, that body bag spot with the thumbtacks in it, there's no good way to take that. You're just taking it.
And what do you have? He had that one. Didn't he have the one off the steps too? I think Cody Rhodes or Cody.
Yeah, when he had that spot against Cody, and then he had the paradigm shift off of the second rope against Moxley. And then he even took an insane one in the ladder match from Double or Nothing. I mean, it's just like you can count on so many. You only got so many fingers and toes to count the crazy spots Darby Allin's done while he's in AEW.
I love it. Give me more.
Yeah, he's one of the coolest characters there. I mean, I think, and that's what I like about AEW is that everyone's kind of got their own thing. It's not like nobody's really one and the same there, and he's definitely a unique talent. Like skateboarding He's got his face painted. He's even got the tattoo now where it's his whole arm is a skeleton. Which, fun fact, you can do that on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remastered. You can get the Darby Allin tattoos. I don't know if that was a plan or not, but you can put like the skeleton on the face. You can put the arm tattoo that he's got. Kind of cool. I don't know if that was confirmed. Activision is AEW fans.
At this point, they might have to be. Maybe that's their little teaser into the future AEW video game.
Ooh, I would play an Activision AEW game as long as I could just be Kenny Omega and just give V triggers to all the zombies. That would be so much fun. But yeah, Lance Archer won. We'll see when he gets his title shot. That match went about 22 minutes. Ideal time.
Yeah.
Especially with bringing in 5 guys at the same time. It went about as long as it should have.
I agree. And
should we talk about this next one? That was kind of a shit show.
Man, I was really excited for this one too. So I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah,
I don't have any really words other than holy shit, because we're talking about the broken rules match between Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara, and it was basically a last man standing match where if Matt Hardy were to lose, he would have to leave AEW, which I said this in my preview. I hate when they do stuff like that. That's why, because he's going to win. He just debuted. Like, you can't have that stipulation there. And it backfired on them immediately because Matt Hardy, they're fighting in the back. He gets chased down by Sammy in one of the golf carts. Good
callback. Great callback.
Great callback. So they go up to the top of this like scaffold thing, and you know something crazy is going to happen. So they're at the top of the scaffold. There's 2 tables set up because, why not? And Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara go off of it, and Matt Hardy smacks his head on the concrete.
He was dead.
He was dead. It was bad. It was probably. It took me a minute to realize exactly what happened, and to know that it was actually serious. I was like, "Oh my god, he really did just smack his head right off the concrete. Like, that's no joke." So he's laying there unconscious for a solid probably 30, 45 seconds.
Well past the 10 count.
Yes, well past 10 count. And you can tell there's like nobody knows what to do at this point. They throw up the X sign. That doesn't do anything. Nobody comes out.
Yeah, surprisingly, the one thing that's supposed to let everyone know, hey, where something's wrong, it just doesn't have that effect anymore.
So Sammy has to like help him up. And this is where it just got even worse. You're watching this and you're like, someone needs to step in now. Like this,
because he's stumbling everywhere.
He's can't even everywhere. He can't keep his own balance. Sammy's holding him up. They both fall to the ground. He's like pulling Sammy's shorts off at this point. And it was ugly. It's a scary sight for sure. And I was like, okay, well, there goes the backfire of if Matt Hardy loses, he has to leave AEW. Like, how do you can't go back on that right now because he can't continue this match.
You just see Tony Khan hand him his walking papers as he's laying there motionless, which we can joke about now because we know he's out of the hospital and he is apparently doing better. But I know this is going to sound weird, but driving back from Ann Arbor where I was poisoned by a certain pub because I'm an Ohio State fan. I woke up at 3 a.m. dry heaving because their fish poisoned me. I'm sure it had mercury in it, but that's neither here nor there. When I was driving back, and this match probably came on at what, 8:30, 9:40, well, probably 8:45, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm driving back, and I just kind of had this weird, eerie feeling that, like, I'm like, you know what? Like, this could be like an Owen Hart type situation here where, like, something could happen. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I, like, predicted or knew something was wrong, but I definitely felt that. And it could have been completely random, had nothing to do with Matt Hardy, or it could have. But yeah, so I get back, and at this point when I heard about it, I was watching live and I was ahead of it already. So I was just reading about what happened, and I heard the Matt Hardy bump. Now, you were watching it live, you didn't know what happened. I went back and watched this morning, now knowing what we know now. And yeah, just completely, unnecessary. Yeah. Or if you're going to do that, put more than one table there in case they overshoot it.
Like they did.
like they did. Completely overshot it. I'm surprised did Sammy fall on him, or did he fall? Like, he kind of braced. Did he take the fall on his legs? I couldn't really tell from.
Yeah, it was tough to tell. Like I said, at first glance, like I didn't realize how bad he like hit his head. It didn't like register. Like I just saw it because it was so fast.
Yeah, it was.
It looked like Sammy. I don't even know how to describe it. Like he was more to the side of Matt Hardy, and it just didn't end well for Matt at all.
No, and I like how the camera was panned on him until they realized, holy shit, like he's really hurt. And then they just went to Sammy, who's trying to like heal it up because he's trying to save the bit, so to speak, and just kind of keep everything going. And I think for any wrestling fan or anyone that's not a wrestling fan that wants to know if something's seriously wrong, if you see someone, when someone's hurt and down, and you want to know they're not selling, they're legitimately hurt, watch the other guy or woman and see how they're reacting. If they are just kind of like playing the crowd up a little, something's probably wrong. If they go after them, something continuous, it's probably part of the show. But if they're just like healing it up to the crowd or trying to like draw your attention away from them, something's probably wrong, which is what Sammy was doing.
Which at first, though, I don't think at first, like when it happens and he's down, I don't think Sammy realized at first.
No, he definitely did.
He tries to pick him up, and I think he throws like a punch or two, and then he's like, "Oh shit!" Like, okay, this dude he's out. Like this dude.
Yeah, which as someone that's watched a lot of fights from the fight porn subreddit, as soon as Matt Hardy hit, I recognized the way his body just stiffened up. I've seen it plenty of times when people are fighting on concrete for whatever reason. I will never get why people fight on concrete, fight in grass.
Yeah,
but I recognized it. He was out. And I'm surprised there wasn't a blood stain where he landed. Because the way he hit his head, you figure his head would be cracked open. I'll tell you, the thing it reminded me of is by an interesting callback. I don't know if everyone's made this yet. Do you remember back in like the mid-2000s when Kurt Angle was GM of SmackDown and the Big Show chokeslammed him off of a ledge in the parking lot, and they had him laying there in a puddle of blood behind his head. So that's like the first thing that popped in my head. Like I was like, so they just did this for real. I'm like, they obviously SmackDown was taped at the time, so they just edited it in to make it look like that happened. AEW is like, no, we're gonna actually do it live. Yeah, we're doing it live, and thank God he's okay. The rest of the match was kind of an afterthought at that point.
Yeah, and that's what sucked, I think, about it too, was I get wanting to finish the match. And again, they backed themselves into a corner where they almost had to. Yeah. So Sammy goes up front, and they take Matt Hardy, they get the clearing from the doctor that he's good to go. And then you're like,
surprisingly get that clearance.
Yes.
Like everyone is shitting on that doctor on Twitter for that, and rightfully so.
Yeah, and Matt Hardy's wife was all over social media. She was flipping shit. So
I'm sure if Rebby Hardy ever gets her hands on this video, she'd probably say something. But if you've followed Matt Hardy's career, like while they've been together, she is very outspoken. I think everyone was on her side until recently, like a couple hours ago. She started like really digging her heels in this and was just going off. And now I think she's starting to lose a little bit of the traction she had with everyone being on her side and saying that was a stupid spot. She's very outspoken. She will tell it like it is. And sometimes that's not good. Like I think she actually cheered Ashley Massaro committing suicide. But anyways, the match happens. Everyone's pissed off, and go ahead and get back to what you were. That's my bad.
No, you're good. So then they have them kind of fight a little bit, which it just was more of like Sammy still trying to hold Matt Hardy up. Then after the bump that Matt Hardy takes, they have him climb to the top of the freaking stanchion on the stage.
Which they have boxes there for them to fall on, but they didn't have them where they were taking just as big of a bump, if not worse.
So Matt Hardy and Sammy are on top of this thing, and it's like Matt Hardy throws like 2 punches or whatever, and then Sammy falls backwards onto the boxes safely and is down for the 10 count as they quickly try to finish that match as quickly as possible. And Matt Hardy picked up the win after nearly dying.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that Matt Hardy had a 30 count, and then Sammy Guevara gets a 10 count after falling onto cardboard, and he loses. But
Matt Hardy is really living up to that "I will not die" slogan that he lives by.
Yeah, that him and his brother both. It's like, how are they still walking in 2020, let alone wrestling? Watching them as a kid, it was like, how the fuck are they still alive now?
All right, let me grab my computer charger real quick. Apologies.
Okay, I'm gonna riff on some AEW banter here. Yeah, I got nothing. I'm gonna drink some Coors Banquet while he's doing that. He's grabbing his charger. Let's go ahead and get the next one ready for a seamless transition. Gotta use bottle opener. I don't know if they're twist caps yet because they're old timey bottles, so I don't know if it's supposed to be twist duck caps or not. I'm just winging it and bottle opener because I don't want to twist it and then cut myself or just any of that. So, all right, Walsh is back. So.
Apologies for that.
No, you're all good. When you're riffing around for 45 minutes about the greatest wrestling promotion in North America, your computer's bound to need to get charged at some point.
Absolutely.
So
going off the Hardy Boys, though, not to cut you off. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good.
They were probably my favorite tag team of all time, I would say, so far. I love Matt and Jeff Hardy. Growing up as a kid, they were probably like the one team that I really was interested in at week in and week out. They coming up as I was younger, where I was like, holy shit, I have to watch these guys every week to see what crazy stuff they're gonna do.
Yeah, they definitely up there for me. I don't even know if I could name I don't know if I would call them a number one, but right off the top of my head, I can't say a team that is my favorite from growing up. So I guess they are my number one. Yeah, they had some insane spots back in the day, and I got into wrestling, which we're going to save this for another episode when we really deep dive into it, but I got in around 98, 99 when I was 6 or 7 years old, and that's the Hardy Boys came in at the 99. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they were another team I got behind because it's just these guys are doing insane things, and 7-year-old Chavy is just amazed at this. WrestleMania 17 TLC match between
WrestleMania of all time.
Greatest WrestleMania of all time, greatest TLC match of all time.
Yep.
And it was the Hardy Boys who made that match, along with Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys, and all them. But yeah,
I watched that probably at least twice a year.
Oh, dude, there was one time there was an old WWE show, Confidential, it was WWE Access. Sorry.
Okay.
And they would take write-ins for matches to show during the broadcast. And I wrote in, this was probably 2002, 2003. And I wrote in, I was like, you should show the greatest ladder match of all time, the TLC match from WrestleMania 17. And they like, oh, we're going to show this match tonight because a fan wrote it in. And I was like, oh, yes, they're going to show this match because I suggested it. But I didn't realize at the time, there's 100,000 other people that are like, this is my favorite match of all time. I was telling my parents, and I was calling my grandparents and my uncle, who's a big wrestling fan, who actually got me into wrestling. I was like, guys, they're going to read my letter I wrote on TV because I suggested this match, and now they're showing it. Again, I didn't know that there was 100,000 other people that had the same opinion about this match. So, yeah, it's one of my favorite matches of all time. The Hardy Boys have stood the test of time. It seems like Matt's always pivoted well with what his body can do. Which is it's kind of weird. That's why he did the whole broken gimmick, because his body is literally broken.
Yes, very.
So it's kind of even more. Yeah, because I don't know if there was a point in the match where I think he was running away from the golf cart at the beginning, and you can just tell his body is beat up.
Oh yeah, he's old and he's been put through a lot. It's that simple, and it sucks, but hey,
it happens.
It happens exactly.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The difference between him and who we talked about earlier, Billy Gunn, we Billy's still old and doing this. Billy Gunn wasn't falling off of ladders through tables on a weekly basis. So that's why he can still do what he does at his age. But Matt Hardy was a totally different type of wrestler.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, we'll definitely deep dive into our favorite WrestleManias and all that. This might have to be a new thing we have here, Brandon. Or we gotta maybe have a wrestling show with me and you.
I'd be down for that. I fucking love wrestling. I could talk wrestling for hours. Like, we have the Branded Sports group chat, and I feel like I'm so out of place because everyone's talking sports constantly. And I mean, I do like the Cincinnati sports teams, but I'm not like a religious sports follower like everyone else. But wrestling and UFC are like the two things I could just go on for days about. So I'd be down. Eddie, Joe, KMS, Aiden, Allie, Mac, AJ, if you're watching this, give us the wrestling show.
Give it to us. We want it.
But I guess one more thing I want to talk about, or I guess say about that match, and they were building for Private Party to be kind of like proteges for Matt Hardy. Just go with that.
Yeah.
No reason Matt Hardy ever needs to step in the ring unless he is like a third man in a 6-man match where they can kind of hide his flaws or his injuries. And I just think Sammy needs to move on. Sammy is one of those other guys, future of the company. Get him in a feud where he can just really show off that talent and have some banger matches with some other guys in the division.
Yeah, we probably would have gotten this match a little bit sooner had Sammy not said some insensitive comments about Sasha Banks. But hey, live and you learn. He's young. Yeah. But yeah, I think Matt Hardy needs to take on that Michael Hayes role that Michael Hayes took on with him and Jeff.
Oh, I love that callback. I will drink to that callback.
Yes. But next up, we have the match where I believe you officially started last night for your first watch, the Women's Championship match. And I'm going to be completely honest. I missed this entire match, so I have nothing to go off of on this one.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and tag. I'll tag in here. Yeah. There we go.
Tag.
And so even in your prediction blog, which you can read on thebrandedsports.com, #getbranded, you were honest, and I respect the honesty there. Some other bloggers would just try to bullshit their way through it. You just flat out said, hey, I don't know a whole lot about either wrestler here. So Shida, and for those that don't know, Kenny Omega is running the women's division, I think, along with Brandy Rhodes. And Kenny has wrestled in Japan for a long time. So Kenny was like, hey, I have like my finger on the pulse for the Joshi, which is like the Japanese women's wrestling scene. So Shida was in Riho were like some of the first people he wanted to bring over to the company. And Shida has put on great matches when given the time. They usually don't get 15, 20 minutes for the women on Dynamite. So you don't really get to see that a lot. She's a great wrestler. Thunder Rosa in her own right is a great wrestler out of NWA. This was something that people were predicting would happen for All Out, which I don't know if they had spoilers or what, because I don't think anyone predicted NWA and AEW having a working relationship at any point. But it happened. It's awesome. Thunder Rosa is a great wrestler. A lot of people are calling this match of the night. And really? I'd have to agree.
Watch this then.
Yeah, it's a good back and forth. It's got some good storytelling, some good action. It's what everyone expected it to be. It was a great match. I hope Thunder Rosa can stick around in AEW. I don't know how they're gonna go forward with that, with her being the NWA Women's Champion. If it was up to me, I would just, if I was AEW, I'd sign her or try to. But
I did see something that said, what's his guy, Billy
Corgan?
Billy Corgan, yeah. Him, one of the two, him or Tony Khan, one of them said they would like to develop some sort of working relationship to continue.
I'd have to think it's Billy Corgan because they need it.
Yeah, they definitely need an NAW or NWA. Wow. Woo, too many beers today and yesterday.
Yeah. It has to be a Labor Day weekend, Exactly. You can just drink as many beers as you want, have Monday off. Will you have Monday off?
Yes, I am off tomorrow, thankfully.
So you're off tomorrow, and we had wrestling this weekend. I mean, it's a perfect storm of a weekend.
It really is. If all the Flyers won, I'd be able to enjoy it a little bit more, but hey, it happens.
You'd probably drink more if the Flyers – you'd probably drink it more because the Flyers lost. If they won, I don't think you would have drank as much.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Probably would have slowed down a little bit, would have, taken in a celebration, a little bit. But, so we'll see if that relationship continues. I would be interested into seeing it. Why not?
Yeah. And Shida picked up the win in about 17 minutes. Again, if you haven't watched this match, or if there's one match you should watch from All Out, I would say it's this one. And not because the other, like the next matches we talk about aren't as good. But I think a lot of people know who Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, and FTR and Moxley and MJF. They know about them. They know who they are.
Yeah.
This is a good match. This is a good entry for people that don't know a lot about the AEW or NWA women's roster. It's a good match to just hop in and watch. If you know the back of the story, great. If you don't, you can just come in and watch two women tear the house down for 17 minutes.
Yeah. So I feel like, and again, I admitted in my blog of the previous AEW that I have not been as watching as much as I would like to have. So that's on me. That's my bad. I'll take responsibility. So you may know a little bit better. How has the build of the women's division been since the start of AEW? Because I feel like at the beginning it was like they had a couple people, and it was like, all right, okay. Then you had the title, and then I feel like that was it. There was no really. They weren't given any time. Is kind of where I was at with it. It didn't seem that they were getting much time to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the criticism towards the women's the treatment of the women's roster is valid. I think, yeah, they don't get some of the time. COVID kind of really put a damper on that because, like I said, they were bringing over experienced Japanese women to wrestle. And I think they were kind of planning on, okay, we're going to let them go out there and kind of be like the cruiserweights in WCW where, okay, we're going to let them just put on a great match, technical match, exciting, fast-paced, and then we're going to try to work in the story later. Obviously, when COVID hit, a lot of the women's roster they were going to use from Japan can't come to the U.S. Like you had your original champion in Riho. She can't come over to wrestle and put on great matches because she has. She's proven before with Nyla Rose and Emi Sakura. She can put on absolute clinics.
Yeah.
So can Shida. Shida in her right. We got lucky that Shida was moving to Florida to start with AEW. So we got lucky that she was able to stay there. But I feel like a lot of the other women are a little bit more character-oriented, which isn't a bad thing because we need that in AEW, but they're also working on their in-ring work as well. So it's like they're trying to fine-tune the in-ring work to hang with the Japanese the women wrestlers. So I think it's a new company.
It's a work in progress. That's all it is.
Right.
And I think we all understand that. So I definitely think while some of the criticism is valid, I also would disagree that it's not always valid because they're still new. They're still developing. They've stated it when they first started that this isn't a company that is just here for the time being and maybe hopefully get bought by somebody bigger. That's not what they're here. They want to make this the best company promotion that it can be. And they're trying to build that. And they're, in my opinion, I think they're on the right path because they have their major TV deal. They're putting in the work of developing the younger talent while still having, the veterans they have and the experienced talent that they do have. So I'm excited. Who do we think is going to be the next challenger for the AEW Women's Championship?
I believe she already wrestled Penelope Ford for the title at Fyter Fest. I mean, that's kind of a tough one. I think they should just run back Ford, in my opinion. I know it's only been a couple months, but just let her come in. You don't have any major pay-per-view coming up until November. And who knows if by Full Gear we can get travel bans lifted and we can bring in some of those women that have been, not let into the United States because of the pandemic. I would love to see Shida and Riho wrestle. I mean, you could throw in Nyla Rose, I guess, too. I think she's a great wrestler. But again, I think she's in the Archer type role where it's like you can't just throw her in to lose. If you're going to throw her in, she's got to win the title.
So I have an interesting prediction for one that I don't follow the AEW women's division. I haven't been locked in as I wish I was. Anna Jay, though.
Yep.
So, and this is going based off of, I believe they're going to still try and push the Dark Order to be this major force. They're adding new members. And I think she would be an interesting one. Maybe not, pay-per-view quality challenger, but I could definitely see her possibly getting a title shot in the near future. We'll see what happens, but I think that's an interesting one.
I guess I forgot about Anna Jay. That's probably my bad. That's more of a knock on me than it is Anna Jay because she's putting in great work in the Dark Order. And isn't it crazy, the Dark Order? If you go back, they had one of the worst endings in Dynamite history. I believe back in December. And everyone's like shitting on it back then. They're like, "Oh, this is horrible. Like, is AEW on the decline?" And again, it goes back to trusting them.
Too, in my opinion. Like,
yeah, it was
no one knew who they were. Like, you had no clue who these people were.
Yeah, I mean, well, and the thing is too, the Dark Order, when it was just Stu Grayson and Evil Uno, they were known on the indies as the Super Smash Bros. They weren't known as the Dark Order. So you're almost bringing them in with an unknown gimmick, and they're unknown to most of the audience. So, I mean, that reaction wasn't really surprising, but it goes back to trusting them. And look at them now. They're one of the most over acts in the company, whether it's on Being the Elite, AEW Dark, or AEW Dynamite. They are one of the most over acts.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed their rise since that debut, because like I said, I had no idea when they first debuted who the hell they were. I was like, okay, this is weird, this is random, and it almost reminds me of like, this is something that they would do in WWE that would have no payoff. And I think
like Retribution.
Yes, that's exactly where I was kind of going with that. Like, you have this group that debuts that nobody knows, which I think at this point we all kind of know who the Retribution members more than likely are.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that plays out. They really ruined that. But like the hacker storyline that the WWE had, it was like, all right, there's someone hacking into a bunch of stuff here, and then all of a sudden that was dropped. But it was nice to see like the Dark Order debut, and now to where they are now, they have put in the time and effort to make this group, faction, whatever you want to call them, over, and it's worked.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I mean, if you, like I said, if you go back and look at Stu Grayson and Evil Uno debuting to not a lot of people knowing who they are to where they are now, where they have Colt Cabana in the faction, they have Anna Jay, who's kind of the up and comer, they have the Beaver Boys with Alex Reynolds and John Silver. They had a couple other guys in there as well that are just numbers, and then they have Brody Lee. Yeah, it's one of the coolest factions in AEW. I mean, I'm not going to root for them because they're bad guys and I like to play along, but you tip of the hat to them. They're knocking it out of the park. I like Evil Uno's look. I like the look of like his mask and the way it's like got the teeth on there and the way he like puts the raccoon eyes on there. And it's creepy. I love every second of it.
Well, and the suit he comes out with.
Just awesome in general. And that was a perfect transition to the next match because we had Matt Cardona, Scorpio Sky, which I kind of wonder if they're breaking him off from SCU.
I think they are. I think he's going to get like a singles push more than anything.
Which he should. He's a fucking great wrestler.
He's incredible.
He is. When he had his TNT match, title match against Cody, and then I believe he wrestled Jericho as well for the AEW title, really showed just how great he is.
Yeah, and this match was the 8-man tag. So you had Matt Cardona, Scorpio Sky, and then the Natural Nightmares against the Dark Order that we previously named.
Yep.
So yeah, overall, I thought it was really good. You had Anna Jay get involved with Brandy Rhodes a little bit, so I did like that part. You're including all members that were out there. So that was good to see. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was perfect timing for the match. Didn't go too long. It wasn't, rushed. So I overall enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that 8-man tag served nothing more than to just like kind of keep the show going. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously there's story involved, but you can't just have 25-minute epics for 11 matches. So this match did what it was supposed to do. It kept the story going, and you're gonna have matches like that on the card. I'm glad that the faces here picked up the win. And I think this does better with the story because it just pisses off Brody Lee even more. And that it's going to lead him into just losing his shit more on the team and just getting him that much more over as a heel when he just like started beating, because when he won the title and they did their little commencement ceremony with the casket with Cody Rhodes, you just saw how much he hated everyone that was in the Dark Order, just treats them like dog shit. This is just further going to prove that. Like, it's like, I feel like I'm looking at the, what is it? The Branch Davidians, the cult. It looks like a legitimate cult to me.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it. It's like, he's playing this role perfectly. It makes you wonder why WWE just didn't have him do more than wear a wife beater and try to do a Southern accent. Because he's knocking it out of the park.
They messed up so bad with him and Rowan. Like, could you imagine? And not saying, and again, I hate that we go back to WWE, but
I know, fuck the WWE. I'm on record as saying I fucking hate them.
not that he needs it in the WWE, because Bray Wyatt / The Fiend has been one of the brighter spots. But
Yeah.
can you imagine those two with him?
In AEW?
Well, not even in AEW, but just like with WWE, if they were smart enough to make that work, like a reboot of the Wyatt family almost with him, like the Fiend and them two.
Oh yeah,
that would have been.
I would love that.
But unfortunately, we don't get that. But fortunately, we get the rise of Brody Lee here, and I think he's going to be a major player in AEW for the foreseeable future. And I'm interested to see how long, because I don't. Not that I don't think Colt Cabana is going to stay there for a long time, but you're seeing the seeds being planted for the turn of Brody Lee, like getting him out, and maybe Colt Cabana turning back to a good guy.
Yeah, we'll definitely see where that story goes. And yeah, like you said, Brody Lee, I think he's gonna be champion going into Full Gear. I think whoever he wrestles there, I think we've talked about it before the show. Damn, Coors Light beer burp, sponsored by Coors Light Banquet. We talked about before. Matt Cardona, aka Zack Ryder, is there on I don't want to say a handshake deal, but there's nothing put pen to paper. I think they build towards that match at Full Gear. So I think he sticks around for a little while longer. And I think we see Brody Lee over Matt Cardona. And that's why I think the match is. I think we're going to see a long reign from him. I mean, a lot of people think Scorpio Sky is probably the man to put up against him, but Scorpio Sky's got a way higher ceiling where he's going to, I think, fight for the world title. So Matt Cardona, Brody Lee, book it. And I think
Full Gear, book it.
Full Gear, book it.
Stipulation at all, or just regular match?
Regular match. I think he'll just do a straight up wrestling match. And I don't want to say it'll be a squash, just like Cody versus Brody Lee was, but it definitely won't be competitive.
All right, that's fair. I don't know that we'll definitely see that one. I could see them building it back up to where Cody would get his shot again come Full Gear.
I'd be down for that too. That's the thing. That's the beauty of AEW. I'll be one of the biggest AEW supporters. The fact that we don't know where this is going, like we don't have an obvious, like the fact we go, okay, they can go so many different directions, and we don't know which one they'll go is great, because I'll go back to shitting on WWE because I hate WWE. When you kind of see, where the stories are going. Yeah, you can just say, all right, this is like the Sasha versus like Sasha Banks and Bayley. We know where that's going. We know that's leading towards a breakup down the road. Like there's no red herring.
That already happened this past Friday,
which my girlfriend's dad brought up. So it's on Fox, and he just said, yeah, I watched a show where two women were wrestling each other, and the manager got involved, and then the girl that lost beat the shit out of her friend for whatever reason. It looked like she was really beating her up. I was like, oh yeah, that was. I didn't name names because I was just going to confuse him even more. I was just like, oh yeah, it was on Fox, right? He goes, yeah. I go, okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I heard about that. But no, I just love the fact that it's just totally different avenues they can go, and that's the beauty of it.
It really is, because like I said, we've gone stale with WWE, where it's just like, all right, what's going to happen. Now we have AEW, where you really have no idea where they can go in so many different directions, and you are always going to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and that's what's great about it. And not really a surprise, but maybe to some. We saw FTR go over Kenny Omega and Adam Page in a 30-minute classic, unless you ask. I believe Cash Wheeler was on Twitter. He was not really a fan of how the match went. A lot of people noticed after the match he was pissed off. Looked like it. Didn't look like a guy that was happy with what happened, but I loved the match. And I guess the only thing I'll say about it, I don't even want to say it's a negative light, but just kind of like a nitpick, the match would have been better if there was a crowd there to go crazy.
Yes, I agree. And they did have, limited audience, but imagine that in front of a sold out arena, which I'm assuming probably would have been in Chicago.
Yep.
They seem to do All Out in Chicago every time. That would have been it would have gone off the charts. Like the match was already great. You put in a sold out Allstate arena, or wherever they have it, whatever it's called there.
Yeah.
My God.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of people are comparing this match to the Bucks versus Page and Omega, and they're like, oh, it just didn't hold up to that match. Maybe it didn't. It was a totally different type of match. But if you put the Bucks and Omega and Hangman in a limited audience capacity, I think we wouldn't hold it up to the same standard it was. And that's why I think it's not fair to kind of harp on this match, because if you put that match, like you said, in front of the screaming crowd in Chicago, it gets probably the same reaction. I mean, people are going to holy shit before that match even starts because they were looking forward to it that much. It was probably my most anticipated match on the card.
I agree. I was really looking forward to it. The seeds have been getting planted for months now with the breakup of this Omega Page team.
There's a whole cornfield of seeds that were planted that are blossoming now, like from this potential breakup.
And we mentioned it earlier where we had said that the Bucks are kind of, more on the bad guy side as of late.
They're dicks.
And we have mentioned that the possible return of a certain character from Kenny Omega, the cleaner may be coming back. We will see what happens. They ended that segment where he almost took a chair at Adam Page. He almost did it. He's decided not to. He walked away. He storms out, goes with the Bucks, says, I actually didn't catch what he said at the end of it as he got into the car and took off.
Yeah, that was, I will say, him getting into the car and taking off was a little weird for me. Not really bad, just a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
But I get where they were going with the story. Like you said, they're bringing back the cleaner. They're saying he's done. He's over with them. And I like that it wasn't just an outright turn where it was like he's just going to beat the shit out of him. It was, and a lot of people online are saying that's why they love the Adam Page story so much, is that it's kind of like how friends handle tough times. Like we've all probably had friends come and go, and we've had some that have ended, or breakups, even in relationships that have gone sour. Right? You're just like, I'm tired of this. I'm fucking gone. And that's kind of how they're playing this story. And I think that's why it resonates a lot with a lot of fans, is because it's so relatable. It's probably one of the most relatable storylines in recent memory, because they're not playing it up like your typical, like your Sasha Banks versus Bayley, where it's just like, okay, we're going to have her turn on Sasha by just beating the shit out of her. Where they're just like, we're going to tease it, but then we're going to go to a completely different reason or justification for the turn.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so we know it's coming.
Yep.
The turn is one thing that we can predict is going to happen with AEW. My thing is, how long do they stretch it out? So it's already gone on for a while, and it hasn't been bad. There's by no means this has not been dragged out at all. They could drag this on for even longer, in my opinion, because I feel like you're going to have them get their rematch for the titles. They could stretch that out to Full Gear.
Yep.
They very well could do that. And I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Only for this reason. I don't want to see FTR versus the Young Bucks without a crowd.
Oh, no, absolutely not. This has been a match that's been planned since like 2016.
Yeah.
If
that match without a crowd.
No. I mean, if they can't do that match without a crowd, you keep them away for as long as possible, because that could main event All Out next year.
Yes.
And I'd be perfectly okay with that.
I would too. I want to see that match, obviously. I can't do it without fans. There's no way you can have that match without anybody in attendance. It's too big of a match.
That's a 5-star match. That's good. I mean, regardless if it's going to happen, but if it happens without a crowd, I think people are going to harp on it.
Yes.
And it wouldn't be warranted, because I don't want to say they'll put on a perfect match, but they'll put on a perfect match. And it, like you said, it needs to have the crowd there so they can get into it and feel invested. So, yeah, I think they hold off on that. But you know what, though? It goes back
to, like, how long can you wait? You know what I mean? Like, there's only so many tag teams that they have. And, like I said, I think you could stretch out this Omega and Page storyline with FTR until Full Gear. So you have Full Gear in November. And then the next one is usually what, May?
They'll probably have Revolution. I think they're trying to incorporate that into the rotation. Yeah, February.
Okay.
So,
which I don't think you have it there.
No. I think Double or Nothing is probably the way to go with the FTR versus Young Bucks.
So you're looking at maybe of May. So October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. That's almost 8 months away. That's a long, long time.
Yeah, but thankfully like we touched on before, they have the depth to run that along, and they could even run FTR saying, "Look, we're going to sit out until we have a worthy challenger," and that can get you probably a month off from them wrestling.
True.
Wrestling and just knocking off tag team after tag team, or they could wrestle squash matches. So, I mean, definitely a lot of avenues to go, but yeah, I agree 1000%. This is a match that you do not run with 10 to 15% of the crowd in there. You need 100 to 120% of the crowd in there.
You sold out. If Vegas or Chicago, that's it. Those are your two options.
Oh, yeah. Because they've I mean, the Revival was even tweeting in WWE back in like 2018. They're like, one day we're going to wrestle the Young Bucks and it's going to be like enormous. And then the Young Bucks tweeted the same thing. That's not a match you just do with no crowd.
So we'll see how that plays out. Like I said, I fully expect Omega and Page to get their rematch. And then who knows? Maybe we'll get another pair of singles that end up teaming up.
Yeah, well, the big rumor, or I shouldn't say rumor, it's a prediction from a lot of wrestling fans, is that we're going to see, obviously, like you said, the Cleaner come back, and he's going to dethrone Mox for the title as a heel, and then Hangman will win the title from Omega.
Okay.
So that would be great. That would be the perfect cap to this story.
Yeah, that would get me. I'd be all right with that.
Yeah, and I cannot stress enough how happy I am the Cleaner is coming back, because he is the one that got me into New Japan Pro Wrestling. He is my favorite wrestler on planet Earth. I love Kenny Omega, favorite wrestler. Even incorporating the people I loved as a kid, he is in the top 5 without a doubt. He is the best bout machine. He is the Cleaner. I fucking love Kenny Omega. His match with Okada his first match at Wrestle Kingdom is what got me into like New Japan and like, wow, there is alternatives to WWE.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I will be the first to admit I didn't know much about anything outside of WWE for the most of my, wrestling watching experience. From, I think like the first thing I saw outside of WWE was TNA. And that was like, basically just like what WWE used to be, because they had all like sorts of hardcore matches and stuff. And there's a bunch of former WWE wrestlers. And
it's
got into a little more. It's like, okay, so there's WWE, there's TNA, there's Ring of Honor. Then you've got New Japan. I agree, right around when Omega fought Okada the first time in Wrestle Kingdom. It was an incredible match.
Yeah, which if anyone has not watched I believe they had 4 or was it 3 or 4? However many matches they've had.
Yeah, they've had a couple. I don't remember if it was 3 or 4 though.
Watch them all. Watch the one at Wrestle Kingdom. Watch the 60-minute match at Dominion. Watch the G1 match where they had only a 30-minute time limit, and then they did have 4, because then Omega beat Okada in the 2 out of 3 Falls match at Dominion the following year. And this is how big of an Omega fan I am. Look at the background on my phone. That is the Golden Elite right there. That's when he won the title off of Okada. I woke up at the ass crack of dawn to watch that match live. And when he pinned Okada for that second fall, I screamed. I was so excited. And I'm not afraid to admit that. Like, Kenny Omega has been one of my absolute favorite wrestlers. When him and Ibushi got back together and formed the Golden Lovers.
Yes, that was awesome.
I shed a tear. I'm okay to admit that. I don't know if it's because I've had my 6th or 7th beer so far tonight, but I loved it. Like, his whole Cleaner gimmick, like the way, and if you watch his promos as a heel when he was a Cleaner, fucking phenomenal.
Yeah,
he really knows how to be a dick.
I'm super excited to see that in AEW. But like I said, we'll have to do this again and try and make this a routine thing with us. But moving on from that great match, we had the Mimosa Mayhem match between Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. Which, hold on here.
There, he's got the shirt. He's repping the shirt. Orange Cassidy.
Someone thought that was Ryan Gosling on my shirt beforehand.
Really?
Yeah. So my brother-in-law was like, "Is that Ryan Gosling?" I was like, "No, it's Orange Cassidy."
No, it's Ryan Gosling. I just walk around with him on my shirt everywhere I go. Big fan.
Yeah, just big fan.
But yeah, what did you think of this one? It was an interesting gimmick match. I didn't love it, but it was entertaining. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, like I said earlier, not every match can be a 30-minute epic, and this was kind of a perfect. I don't even want to say cooling off because I don't think it cooled the crowd, but it definitely, because if you just put 2 30-minute matches that are action packed back to back, the fans would get fatigued.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So this was like the best case scenario. It was a great match. It was the rubber match they had. I believe they were 1-1 going into this. Cool little gimmick. And I love that Orange Cassidy got the win. And I love the fact that, and a lot of people talked about this, Jericho is willing to put over anyone that he thinks is like the next best thing. He did this with CM Punk, which, I mean, at that point we already knew he was the next best thing. He did that with Fandango at WrestleMania. He goes against the grain when it comes to legends that are willing to put over talent. And you have to tip your cap to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you clearly read the blog. I wrote that in my preview for All Out that Jericho puts over talent constantly.
Which, while I take a piss, can you go ahead and plug that blog site and everything that's involved with it? It's a great site.
Absolutely. So we are from Branded Sports, thebrandedsports.com. Make sure you check it out. You can check out my preview of AEW All Out, where, if you're like myself, where you don't watch weekly, I caught you up on what you needed to get ready for the pay-per-view on Saturday night. So go back, check that out. Once again, thebrandedsports.com. Follow us on Twitter, branded_sports. And on Instagram, anywhere you can find us, Branded Sports. But yeah, so I wrote about that in the blog, gave you a full preview of everything that you needed to talk about, need to pay attention to, and this Mimosa Mayhem match. I mentioned that Chris Jericho loves to put talent over. It's what he does. He's been doing it for years, and I expected the results that happened. I expected him to put over Orange Cassidy, and sure enough, that's what we got.
Yeah, it was great. It's almost like I didn't even go to the bathroom because we just seamlessly – I heard what you said. I knew what you said before that. I just knew in my head. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was great to see him put over Cassidy. And I feel like some people are saying Cassidy is going to get overexposed. But here's the issue with Orange Cassidy. The dude can go in the ring.
Yes.
And that was his whole thing before he became what his gimmick is now. The dude can wrestle. So it's like, is he getting overexposed for his character? Maybe. But is it a shame that he can go out there and show people he can wrestle? No, because I feel like at the end of the day, one of the biggest harps on him is that he doesn't wrestle a whole lot. So when you just let him go out there and put on a clinic, when he wants to, that doesn't really hurt his brand at all.
No, not at all. And it was a entertaining match. Like I said, I wasn't, I didn't love it, but it was good enough. It got me settled in and ready for the main event.
Right. And it did its job. And where do you think Jericho goes from here? It's because I don't think he gets in the world title again.
No, I don't know though, because every time I think that, he not reinvents himself, but he pretty much reinvents himself.
Yeah.
This dude is always in a main event picture. I'm a little confused because we haven't been seeing much of the Inner Circle.
Yeah.
And I know there was a little bit with Sammy getting suspended.
Yeah.
So I don't know, are they still all together? What's going on with that? I would like to see something more with them, whether it be a full-on breakup where, two people go their own separate ways, whatever it may be, or, maybe Hager decides that he's like, oh, well, Jericho, you've been too busy, doing your thing. I'm the new leader of the Inner Circle. That I would be okay with them two going at it. That would be.
Ooh, and then we get a face Chris Jericho.
Yeah. I mean, not that I want to say his heel act is worn out, because it's not. He's a great heel, probably one of the best of all time, if not the best of all time.
Yeah.
But I think it could be time for, turn the page a little bit. And I think we've been seeing little bits of parts of that as he's been on commentary.
Yeah, and that's been like one of the biggest compliments of Jericho on commentary, much like in the ring. He puts over talent while also being in character. He's the ultimate like team player. Like if he's feuding with Hangman Page, because they wrestled at All Out last year, he's on commentary like giving him shit. But at the same time, he's also like in character. But then at the same time, he's also building him up.
Yeah. And that's what makes Chris Jericho one of the best in the business. Always has been one of the best in the business. And I'm interested to see where it goes because, like I said, it's almost like he has been taking on more of an outside the ring role, but he's definitely not. He's far from done in the ring, and I think we all know that.
Yeah. If you want to see a textbook how not like the total opposite of Jericho, go watch Randy Orton versus Hulk Hogan at SummerSlam or Hulk Hogan versus Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam, where you just go into business for yourself, say, I'm not losing to them. Brother, I can't lose to Shawn Michaels right now, and he's a good guy. Go ahead and turn him heel. I can't play the bad guy. And just watch how that works. So that's why I think it's great that Jericho comes from like the time when those guys were prominent and they were just dicks to everyone because they were all looking out for their brand. And he's just like, look, I've earned my status through my work rate and my character work. So I've already cemented myself as one of the greats. Let me pass the torch here and help get the future over instead of just like playing the hits like Hulk Hogan did.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'm interested. There's a lot of ways that he can go. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I guess before we move on to the main event, Orange Cassidy. I mean, do you think they ever put him like? I think he could contend for the TNT title, but do you even see them doing that with him? Like, or do you see him more of being like the third man with the best friends? Because this character really doesn't really scream, "I need a title."
No, and that's the beauty with him. He doesn't need a title at all. With Brody Lee being the TNT champion, I don't think you could. There's no point to really have that match.
Yeah,
because like that's just you wouldn't have him beat Jericho just to get squashed by Brody Lee, in my opinion. So I don't think with Brody Lee as the TNT champion, we'll see that. Who knows? Maybe, I mean, I don't really know who you'd put him with other than like the best friends, but do you think they ever maybe do like kind of like with New Japan where like the 6-man title?
I mean, maybe after the pandemic and they can bring in more people and they do add in that second show on TNT that they're talking about or TBS. They haven't really said where it's going to be yet.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that. For right now, I do like while you're building, you would rather have too less a titles for people to fall or to fight for than to too many. So I think down the road, 6-man, I would definitely be a fan of.
What about the FTW title?
Yeah, I heard Tony Khan say they were gonna to do more with that belt, and again, I think it comes down to the second show that they're gonna do. But we don't know how it's gonna go, but we have all the trust in the world to AEW that they're gonna really, and even if they don't nail it the first time, they try something new. I trust them enough to go back to the drawing board and figure it out, like you said. So we'll see what happens. But I'd like 6-mans down the road, or at worst, I would like a special, like, I don't know if I want to call it pay-per-view, but like a special event where they just do a 6-man tag tournament. And like they have a tournament, and then that's the champion of that tournament until the following year.
I would be cool with that. Because that's what like I just can't. Like I said, I don't think he needs a title, but it's like, who do you feud him with right now after beating Jericho?
Because his character at the end of the day screams comedy, which it's fine. We need comedy in wrestling, but you can't put him with the TNT belt and still have him kind of be the same character. But if you put that 6-man on him, he can kind of be like, meh, I don't care about this title, but I guess I'm going to hold it because my friends Trent and Chuck want to have it. So I guess that's gold. We just AEW hire us as writers, or Sammy Guevara's manager. Just respond to my email about getting Sammy on the show.
Listen, we can do it all here. If you guys are looking for more tag teams, we'll do it. Sign us up.
Yeah, my finisher would be the Canadian Destroyer, even though I probably would just blow up my ankle doing it. I'll try it. I will be immortal on Botchamania. I will be immortalized on there if I try Canadian Destroyer. I tell you what, if this show gets more than 30 views, I will do a wrestling finishing move of the Brander's choice to someone.
Oh God! All right, so there you have it. Make sure you tune in, watch this video. Whatever.
Watch Chavy cripple himself. That's gonna be the name of
it. Show it to your grandmom, your mom, your dad, your grandpa, everyone you can find. Just show them this video so Chavy has to do some sort of wrestling finisher on somebody.
Yeah, that's on record. So I mean, I'm gonna do it. I definitely won't puss out of this. Because if you were here at Branded Sports early and you saw that I was able to do long division when me and Walsh here made our bet, I'm a man of my word. I will continue to do it. Yeah, I will follow through.
So we know what he's capable of in the math game. We're not sure what he's capable in the finisher game, but hopefully we can find out.
Well, if it's anything like my girlfriend sees how I am in the finisher game, you guys will all be thoroughly disappointed. So,
great transition because we're talking
about a finisher being banned.
We were not disappointed in the finish to the pay-per-view.
No,
we had the AEW Championship on the line between Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose, in WWE versus MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, probably the biggest dickhead in all of wrestling, and he plays it so well.
Now, do you think it's because he's better than us and we know it?
Yeah, it has to be. It's the only reason.
Salt of the earth guy. I respect him. But yeah, great match. And can I just say I like the name Moxley, Jon Moxley, better than Dean Ambrose. When I heard Dean Ambrose was debuting in WWE, I was like, all right, cool. But when I saw Moxley's hype video for when he got released and the New Japan video, which if you haven't seen, where it's like, we don't know who he is, watch it. It's fucking great. It's directed by one of the former guys he wrestled with, Sick Nick Mondo, which and I'm going to go full nerd here. This guy took a weed whacker to his chest at the Tournament of Death. And if you have the chance, watch it. It's crazy. This dude just is tied to the ropes and he takes a weed whacker to his chest. It's not gimmicked. He just takes a legitimate weed whacker and takes it to the chest for like $200. Crazy.
When Mox got released or left WWE, I guess I should say, he didn't get released because they would have been he left on his own terms, which very weird in my opinion. Like WWE doesn't normally applaud guys for leaving, but he got like a very good treatment on his way out. They gave him like the Shield special reunion match thing for the final send off, which it was like, okay, is he actually leaving? Like this is too weird. Like it's set up to where he may actually be coming back, but no, they did a really good job of him leaving. And then when the video came out of Jon Moxley coming back, it was like, holy shit, this is actually happening. Let's go.
Yeah, which it's not really surprising because he was a top guy. It's kind of like Ortiz doing his retirement tour because I mean, I think they want him to come back down the road for at least a Hall of Fame induction with the Shield.
They'd be dumb.
So they can't. Oh yeah, it would be stupid not to induct them into the Hall of Fame. But I think that's why they did that. And we do see them literally send people out with their back on the mat and they're heading to the fucking nosebleeds, getting just buried on the way out. They couldn't do that with him. He was one of the top guys in the business before he said, I'm going to quit and leave. And I think he's kind of, I respect that. He was like, I don't need this company. I want to go out. I could sit here and collect millions, or I could go and just like be happy wrestling, which at the end of the day, that's why I'm a wrestling fan. I love to watch them go out there and just be creative.
Yeah. And he's probably one of the most creative guys in all of wrestling. I think we could both agree on that.
Yeah, his promos, I mean, just have you on the edge of your seat every time. He doesn't have to like yell, but when he when those words are talked to the microphone or to the camera, every word means something. And it's like you're like, holy shit. This was a great promo.
And I'm glad he is I'm with you where he doesn't need this title run that he's on, but it's only going to do wonders for his career. He's one of the guys I would say there's very few guys that can do what he's doing with or without a title. Like, he doesn't need the AEW championship. He could have lost MJF and still be just as good and still be the reason that people tune into Dynamite every week.
Oh yeah, because when he was in WWE, before he announced his release, or before he was leaving, he wasn't renewing his contract. He was, even if he didn't have the title, he was up there in storylines. Even when he had the Raw tag team titles with Rollins, like, they were still getting priority booking compared to someone that wouldn't be in the title picture for the Universal or Heavyweight title. So, I mean, yeah, that just goes to show just how much he means to, like, the wrestling world as a whole. He is someone that, I don't even know if I can name anyone now that could do that, where they don't need a title. Maybe Randy Orton with his heel work now.
Yeah, but again, that's led him back to a championship. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Not that he needed it, but that's where it's put him. And I don't want to say it's almost cooled him down a little bit, but I in my opinion, after watching him lose to McIntyre,
and then Keith Lee,
yeah, I think it's cooled him down a little bit, and that's what I don't like. Like, that's what's frustrating me. Like, he's doing so well being this just dick, and you have him going over. That's why I hate sometimes when they do put some of these guys in championship matches just to have them lose. Like, what's the point? Like, you just build him up. He just beat Edge, who was coming back from retirement.
Yep. He's
been dominating all these legends, and I get, like, yeah, you want to put over your younger talent with Drew McIntyre, but it's like, at the same time, like, come on, dude. You have this awesome heel that is dominating the game right now, and now has lost 2 big matches.
Yeah, and I think that that's actually a good segue into how the match at All Out went down, because we had MJF lose, but will it cool steam on him? Will it cool him down as the bad guy? Or will his stock plummet? No, because the way the match ended, the paradigm shift was banned.
Which means he was not allowed to use it. Wasn't allowed to use it.
Wasn't allowed to use it. And when MJF went to cheat, he got outsmarted by John Moxley, and the ref wasn't looking, so he hit the paradigm shift for the win. That's how you book it. That's how you book a heel that you want to keep going as a heel, and you want to keep putting their stock up, as opposed to just a clean 1-2-3 loss.
We could very well see this rematch at Full Gear.
Yeah, and I'd be okay with that. And even does MJF have to win there?
What was that?
Does MJF have to win there, do you think?
No, I don't think he does. I think you could have it so they kind of teased it a little bit from what I saw in one of the last couple episodes of Dynamite, where Wardlow was kind of eyeing the title up when MJF was holding it. So I think you could, and he kind of cost him the match in a way. He threw the ring into him, and MJF dropped it. But the great heel that MJF is, he's going to turn that on. Oh, that was a really piss poor throw by you, and it's going to turn in. There's going to be a little tension between them two. So I could definitely see, this still being built up as another rematch for Full Gear with, maybe MJF biting off a little more he can chew and, being too big of a dick to his manager and maybe turning on him.
I like that. And that's a great detail that you brought up. And it's something that, again, I'm going to say Core's burp there. WWE doesn't do as well as AEW. There's no wasted moment throughout the 2 hours that you see Dynamite, or the 3 hours and I think 48 minutes that it All Out clocked in at. There's no wasted moment. Everything is done because that's how they planned it.
Yeah.
Another Core burp. Wardlow eyeing the title on Dynamite. That's not right. It's if there's a show I could compare, I want to make this comparison, and I want it out there on record, so when people start comparing it, I can say I started this. AEW to me is a lot like The Wire. I'm on my second rewatch of The Wire, and if you just go back and look at all the callbacks or subtle things that were done on purpose that you don't notice the first time around, unreal on The Wire. And I feel like that's where AEW is, where it's there's no wasted moment. There's no filler. It's just, like you said, Wardlow eyeing the title. You go back on The Wire in the second season, you see a callback the second time around. You're like, wow, I didn't notice that. It was there the whole time in front of me and I didn't see it. So when you see it, then you're like, okay, that's why this happened down the road. So Wardlow eyeing the title the other night, that's why Wardlow's turning on MJF if he wins the title.
Right. And that doesn't even have to happen that quickly. One of the good things, and I don't know if it's fair comparison with WWE. One of the best things I've seen them do in recent years, and of course it was in NXT because NXT is usually better than Raw and SmackDown.
Yep.
The Pat McAfee and Adam Cole thing.
Yep.
That wasn't, people think that was just thrown together to get like star power on the takeover. That has been built for a very long time. Like since Pat McAfee started working with WWE, they've been building to that match.
Yeah.
Like it's been little things here and there. And that's what I'm saying. That is the great storytelling aspect of wrestling. And yes, WWE struggles with it, but AEW has been knocking it out of the park. And I think this is going to be one of those things that we will see eventually come to a head. And who knows? It could be very soon. Could be as soon as Full Gear, or it could be even later down the line. Maybe, Wardlow helps MJF win the title at Full Gear or something like that, only to a few months later turn on him.
Yeah, that would be awesome to see. And again, I think a lot of the big moments AEW can have right now should wait for a crowd. I mean, obviously you can't hold it off without knowing, when this is going to end. But goddamn, like some of this stuff would be great with a crowd there. Like if you're going to turn Wardlow on MJF, you have to have a crowd there to cheer him on to solidify that face turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
But crazy.
Overall, I enjoyed the match. It was a really good match. Wasn't
MJF showed a little color.
What was that?
MJF showed a little color there. He bled a little.
Yes. Busted wide open. Blade job?
Yeah, I'll say blade job just because I feel like they've been using blood pretty frequently in AEW, which I'm a fan of. Don't get me wrong.
Love it.
And I think most of it is blade. I think the only one that's been legitimately busted open is Matt Hardy with the chair.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I love the use of blood. I think it adds to the feud. And I love that they throw back to like the 80s and 90s where it's like that's where when the blood was used, you were like, wow, that's like, it's not like ECW where it was like gratuitous and like happening every match. But when they do it, it matters.
Right. And I agree. I think it's a big part of the storytelling. It's like, oh man, he's actually hurt. Like, oh my God, that's real blood. This isn't fake anymore. That, the casual fan tuning in may think. So I liked it. Overall, I thought the match was good. The ending was spectacular where they have Wardlow throw the ring into the ring into the ring. MJF fumbles it. And of course, Max used the paradigm shift and boom, it's over.
Which do you like? Do you think it was a callback to when MJF cost Cody the title at Full Gear when he threw in the towel? Do you think that was a callback to like what comes around or what goes around comes around, and Wardlow, the manager for MJF, cost him the match when he was the manager for Cody and cost Cody the match?
Could have been. Definitely could have been. I honestly didn't even think about that until you just said that. So maybe.
Yeah, it's an onion. AEW is an onion. There's so many layers to peel back.
Yes. So great match, great pay-per-view. I'm going to say it was great pay-per-view. Yes, there was a few mishaps, a few crazy things that happened that you really couldn't prevent. One you could have prevented, Matt Hardy.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, I will say the no fans definitely puts it down a little bit, because you're not getting the major reactions that we know we would get from some of these matches, like FTR and Omega and Page. Like that would have been wild with a sold out arena.
Yeah.
But they're doing the best they can with everything that's going on, and they're putting on entertaining shows week in and week out, and now entertaining pay-per-views. So
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, look, this isn't AEW's fault, but they're working with the hand they're dealt, like you said. And when we can get fans back, I think it's just going to solidify that they're on the up and coming with their shows. And I think, yeah, it is tough to get into it without fans. Even if they were at 10 to 15% capacity, could we really hear those fans in the? No, we couldn't. Because wrestling is infectious. When I used to go to watch WWE pay-per-views at this bar, the shittiest match could be entertaining if like someone at that bar was like, "This is boring." Like you said, it makes it that much more better when you're watching it with like some kind of liveliness from the people watching.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all we got for All Out. If you want to, we can keep going a little bit here if you want.
Yeah, I guess I'll offer a little bit more on all out. Like we talked about, I don't know if it was when we were recording or before. It was one of the worst AEW pay-per-views. That's just to get us clicks. If I say that, it's a good soundbite to get out there. But again, when you say it's the worst compared to Revolution, All Out, 2019, Double or Nothing, all of that, those were phenomenal shows. Or Revolution, all great shows that got critical acclaim. If this was a Rotten Tomatoes score for this pay-per-view, it'd be sitting like an 85. Obviously not the 95 to 100% that the rest of the pay-per-views got, but still great compared to any other pay-per-view you're going to see. So it's like, I get it wasn't the most exciting show compared to the others, but it was still great nonetheless. And I do not like all of the fans saying, wow, this was a bad show compared to the rest. It's like, yeah, not every show is going to be a home run, but you know what? If we're going to get 5 great shows and then one that's just okay or good,
I'll take it.
I'll fucking take it. Because how many times a year do we get shitty WWE pay-per-views?
Instead of what you get sometimes 2-3 pay-per-views a month now, the way they're going. And it's like, all right, you have maybe 15 total pay-per-views for the year and 14 of them are bad. Not even okay, like 14 of them are bad.
Yeah, that was what kind of turned me off from the WWE. I haven't watched SummerSlam 2020 was the first show I've sat down and watched from start to finish in probably 2 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. I unfortunately do torture myself pretty much with every pay-per-view. Just because I'm just hoping that, I'll be pleasantly surprised, and it just never works that way. Like, so I was at WrestleMania last year, and I will say being in attendance for that was awesome. But man, it's one thing to sit there and watch a 7-hour show pretty much.
I mean, you can put
your couch, watching it in attendance, that was rough.
Where was the WrestleMania at last year?
The one in New York. So
the
Triple Threat, the first ever women's main event with Rousey, Charlotte, and Becky.
That was in New York last year? Shit, I thought it was somewhere else for some reason. No, I mean, you can't expect anyone to sit through a 7-hour show because like the way we broke down All Out was like there were some matches that were just meant to like get you to the next match and kind of cool you down a little from like the action packed you got. In a 7-hour show, do you know how many of those matches you're getting? You're getting like 8 or 9 of those.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it was awesome to be in attendance for WrestleMania. Like, that's something I'll never forget. But at the same time, it was just, like I said, it's one thing to sit on your couch or be at home or be at a buddy's house and watching that for that long than to be sitting in attendance at a live event. Like, I don't know that I would ever do that again. And if I was going to do it again, I would make sure that I'm staying on location. Like, I wouldn't travel. No, maybe that was a mistake that I made by not staying in the city during that weekend. But either way, that's way too long to be sitting in a live attendance.
Way too long. It's funny you say that, like talking about watching on your couch. I actually went to my buddy's house last year and I watched it, and I fell asleep like right before Kingston won the title. So if that shows anything about how like just slow pacing those shows can go when they're 7 hours long. That's almost a work day for some people. That is a work day for some people.
Yeah.
Like, imagine going to work, WrestleMania starts, and then when you get off work, it's still going on. That's fucking unreal.
Yeah, absolutely insane. But going back to AEW is why people are saying, oh, it's the worst one they had. I would agree that, yeah, maybe it is the worst one they've had, but it's still been great. And I think the only reason that it's getting like people saying that it's the worst one they had is, I would say, mainly because of the Matt Hardy thing. Like, yeah, that's the biggest issue that people have with this pay-per-view.
Which completely warranted. I mean, it was definitely a mishandled situation. He shouldn't have been cleared to continue. And I think it was a misstep on AEW's part, because I think for the most part, AEW fans are pretty understanding of situations that, like, okay, like I know Chris Jericho is not a dickhead in real life like he is on the show. Like, I know at the end of the day, I'm watching a show. I'm watching people portray characters they are not in real life. If you want to say that Matt Hardy was legitimately hurt and we couldn't continue the match, that's fine. And I know they could build that into storylines down the road. Like, they could have done that. They didn't have to clear him to wrestle.
Yeah.
Because if they say he's passing a concussion protocol test, they're full of shit.
There's no way that he went through the proper concussion test in maybe 45 seconds is what it felt like.
Well, in and out of the tent, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's good." No, not good.
That's not how that works. We see it in pro sports all the time where if a guy goes to the blue tent in the NFL, he's not in there for 30 seconds.
No.
He's in there. Then they say, okay, well, you need to go back to the locker room for more testing, and then we'll let you know if you can come back.
Yeah.
So clearly,
I know that
we're not taken.
No, it definitely wasn't. And I think this doctor that they have now was like one of the doctors involved with the CM Punk lawsuit where they had a couple years back. It's like, you know what? Get rid of him if you have to, or just own up and say, "Hey, we fucked up on this." Which we would take. I think as fans, I don't want to say I speak for every fan, but I think even the fact that they were like, "Oh, we're gonna take Big Swole and Britt Baker from the buy-in and put it on the main card," shows that they listen to fans and they're at least transparent, which we don't get in the WWE.
Not at all. And
so if you're just gonna offer some sort of transparency and be like, "Hey, we fucked up on this," I think you're not going to get completely forgiven because I think it was kind of a careless or reckless spot having one table there. But at least you're like showing, hey, we realize we fucked up and we're going to do better next time. And I think that goes back to the trust that we have with AEW. Just admit it and we'll be like, that's fine. That's the end of it. We'll move on. Everybody makes mistakes.
Now, the only thing to counter that would be this is now the second time, at least that I've noticed, that they've kind of fucked up with the concussion stuff. So
what was the other one?
The first one was when Shawn Spears debuted.
Oh, the unprotected chair shot to the head.
Yes. The unprotected chair shot to the head, and now this. So you have two concussion things where it's like, all right.
Which I'm willing
scenarios.
Which I'm willing to write off the Shawn Spears one because, granted, they did get backlash for that, and I think Cody did have kind of an excuse. They said the chair was supposed to be gimmicked. Again, I'm not really a fan of the unprotected chair shots like you're alluding to here, and that one was more of like, okay, it was his choice to take that headshot.
Yeah, that's fair.
I kind of get that. But this one was just like, we didn't plan properly with Matt Hardy. It's like, if you just put a second table there, like none of us are going to be like, wow, that was such a planned spot. Like we could just believe that there's any two tables next to each other at any given spot in that arena.
Yeah.
It really wouldn't have like just made me go, this is clearly staged or anything. They could have just put it there and that would be the end of it. But yeah, it is warranted though. With that criticism they did get for that chair shot to the head, completely warranted. This one also warranted a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that they will adjust and learn from the future. Like, okay, maybe we should plan a little bit better because I think we've seen them adapt. And I think they'll do that.
That's what's great about them too. It's like, how many times have we seen, like, Roman Reigns got shoved down our throats as the baby face of WWE for multiple years, and now they are just turning him heel.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is
5 years to finally do it.
It is wild. And I know you said you haven't really watched. Have you seen any of his stuff as him being a Paul Heyman guy now?
Yeah. When I say I don't watch it, I just mean I don't tune in like I used to. I used to tune in to 2016 or 2017 SmackDown when it was just fresh off the draft and they were doing like AJ Styles versus Dean Ambrose versus like John Cena and The Miz versus Dolph Ziggler for the Intercontinental title where they put his career on the line. Tuned in every week to that. Loved it. Thought it was some of the best wrestling on TV they have put out in quite some time. So what I do now is I go to Reddit and I'll keep up with it. So I know what's going on, but I don't invest that full 2-3 hours in it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm the same way a little bit where, like I said, I'll watch, but like I'm not tuning in like I used to. I'm not watching Raw or SmackDown every week. I'll turn it on for a little bit, watch like an hour and be like, okay, same shit's going on. I'll turn something else on if there's something else to watch. Now, don't get me wrong. If I'm not doing anything else, I'll turn it on. But it's like if someone's like, hey, you want to play Call of Duty or if there's a sport on or something like that, then I'll turn to that before I watch Raw right now. Unless I know something big is going to happen, which There hasn't been anything big happening at all.
Raw Underground. They're doing Fight Club.
Yeah, they have Fight Club, which I don't fully understand.
Some of the dumbest bullshit ever. Like, they're basically trying to rip off Fight Club, and they're ripping off Matt Riddle's and now Josh Barnett's Bloodsport they would do, where they're doing like shoot fights in a controlled environment. And I fucking hate it. It's so poorly done. It is dog shit. They can't do it right. Like, how can you advertise like, okay, we're going to run this like clean and proper show, but then like the last hour, we're going to be like, we're throwing the gloves are off.
There's no rules. There's no rules. Anything goes. Yeah. Like, no.
It's so stupid. Like, I fucking hate it. Like, it's like, I can get that from like, did you ever watch Lucha Underground or see anything about that back in the day?
Yeah, I've seen that a little bit.
Yeah, so that was like the perfect environment for like the type of like Fight Club, like unsanctioned type of shit to go down. You can't have that when you have a publicly traded company like WWE that go like, oh, yep, gloves are off for this one. We're letting them just murder each other on TV.
Right.
I just can't buy it. Like, it's just such a lack of creativity. It's such a, like, it's fucking 19 years too late.
Yeah.
Like, on the trend.
Yeah. They're
stupid.
They just can't figure it out. Maybe eventually one day they will, but I don't have hope for it at all.
Soundbite. Vince McMahon needs to be dead before they'll even figure it out. And even then, I don't think they will. CM Punk.
Yes, the greatest pipe bomb of all time.
He's actually what got me into WWE again. Like his promos about the pipe bomb.
Freaking miss him. Come back.
Yeah. I mean, I want him to come back, but I don't know how. Like, I feel like everyone's going to hold him to the standard where he has to put on a 5.5-star banger. And I don't think he has that in him, but I would love to just see him come back, even in an announcer role, in either AEW or WWE, and just do what he does best and just run down people on the microphone.
The fact that he came back on WWE Backstage and had the amount of views that he got, the fact that Vince McMahon and WWE did not break open the bankroll to figure out a way to get him back, even regardless of him saying, I don't want to come back. If you're offered enough money, you're going to come back.
Bret Hart came back and he got arguably more fucked over than CM Punk ever did.
Right. And like, so to me, it makes no sense at this point why he has yet to return. And like I said, I am not buying that whole, I don't want to wrestle anymore. It's bullshit. Okay.
Shawn Michaels came back and wrestled in Saudi Arabia, and he said he was done.
Exactly. As the $1 million man once said, everyone's got a price.
Everyone's got a fucking price.
So figure it out. And honestly, at this point, I'd almost rather him not come back to WWE. I would rather see him in AEW because I think it would be 10 times better. Yeah,
I mean, it would definitely fit in with like that crowd there. Would love to see him return. And I think he could probably bring Colt's personality with him because that's not a WWE song. As soon as you hear that little riff at the beginning, that would be the roof would come off the building there, wherever they're at.
Insane.
It would be unreal. I think you put him and Jericho against each other.
I'd do it.
Yeah, I think that's a match. You kind of see where he stands. You get a solid hand in Jericho, and you can just kind of see where CM Punk stands. Because I think if you throw him in against Omega and he from the ring rust couldn't hang with Omega, it's going to show because Omega is like firing on all cylinders, and he has been for the last 3-4 years. So it's like you can't throw him in with there. But if you throw a guy like in there with Jericho, like a little bit more storytelling and not as much relying on the action and the work rate,
and
you can kind of see it.
He's got the experience of working with Jericho before. All right, so let's go if he comes back to somehow and goes to AEW, his first 2 feuds, in my opinion, should be Jericho 1, Moxley 2, because he has experience with him as well. So you knock out 2 feuds right there with him, where he's got experience working with the guys to get back into the flow of things, get back into being a full-time wrestler, and then you're set up. Then you can go whatever way you want to go with him.
Yeah, and it goes back to like they can work the WWE style to get him acclimated, and then once he's like, okay, I'm back, I feel my little rhythm a little, then you can throw in the Omegas, the MJF versus CM Punk on the microphone.
That would be incredible. Those promos would be some of the best things that we would ever hear.
the contract signing for their inevitable match at Full Gear, that's probably All Out match. That would be ratings just
through the roof.
Yeah, through the roof. 2 million.
CM Punk versus Colt Cabana.
Loser has to take all the costs from the lawsuit. I'd be down for that.
That story tells itself. You don't even have to do anything for that.
No, I think what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I go back and I'll rewatch some old WWE shows and stuff because I have the network. So I always forgot that Colt Cabana was in attendance for Money in the Bank in Chicago. Yep. I forgot they show him going over to him, and it was just damn, man, what could have been? What could have been?
He was in WWE at one point, but they kind of squandered him when he was Scotty Goldman.
Yeah,
that's the story of WWE. They fuck up everything, and I think we've hit the 2-hour mark. That's a good point to end. Is the WWE just fucks up everything?
Yes.
So we just plant our flag firmly as showing that WWE fucking sucks.
Yes.
So you can follow us on Twitter. I have it on the ticker on the bottom here, which you can see. Keith_Walsh18. You can follow me, Agent Chavy Scarn. You can follow Branded Sports at Branded_sports. Go to thebrandedsports.com, #GetBranded. Read an awesome blog and watch the shit out of this so they will give us a show about wrestling.
Yes. Click
2 hours of wrestling here. It was nothing. This match we can get every week. All right, that's going to do it. We'll see you.